Councilmember Cubie,
We're all
on
here.
the call. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is Kristen. We're all here. Councilmember Cubie is here.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the city of Tempe is within the Salt River Valley, which is the ancestral home of the Aki, Mel, Thumb, Pima, and Peeposh Maricopa Indian communities, whose care and keeping of this land allow us to be here today. As I now call the June meeting of the Sustainable and Livable Communities Committees to order. As you might expect, our committee covers topics related to sustainable and livable communities. Note that no formal votes will be taken or decisions will be taken about city programs, policies, or budget here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members and to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be part of whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any items on the meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any thoughts, questions, or ideas you may have. Someday when we host meetings in person again, it'll be easier for people to speak in meetings. But for now, in this virtual environment, we need to fill out a comment card in advance that can be read into the record for an agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found on our committee webpage at tempe.gov/SLC. And you'll find contact information for committee members and staff there for non-agendized questions as well. Go ahead, Councilmember Cubie.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Chair Adams. Next item on our agenda is item 2. It's review and support of meeting minutes from our May meeting. If there are no objections, I move we approve the minutes from the May 25th, 2022 meeting as written.
I have no objections and second the motion, so the May minutes are unanimously approved.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go to our public comment section. The next item on our agenda is item 3, public comments. This committee welcomes public comment. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public comments that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. A 3-minute limit per person will be in effect. Kristen, do we have any comment cards?
Councilmember Adams, we do not. We did have a card submitted by a resident who wanted to speak in person, but she emailed me earlier today and said she would not be joining the meeting after all. So we have nothing else.
Okay, well, thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 4A, current items and updates. And I understand we have some conflicts with staff time. So if it's all right with you, Councilmember Cubie, I'd like to go a little out of order and move item 4A3 to the top. That's the International Green Construction Code update.
Sure, no problem. That's fine with me.
Okay, Dino, if you're ready, take it away.
Can you see me okay?
Cannot see you, Dino. It looks like the camera's pointed too far down. I see Donna. I do not. Dino.
Is that better?
Then we see your desk.
We see your desk. I think you need to point the camera up more.
I think.
Unless you're a ghost today, Dino.
There
Oh,
we go.
there's not a ghost after all.
Hello.
Hi, Dino.
Hello, Council Member Adams and Council Member Cubie. I haven't been here in a while, so happy to be back and nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
So today we're going to be presenting a green code update. I will say right off the bat, without the PowerPoint, that there's been a lot of work put in, a lot of staff effort to keep this moving along. So, you know, the past seeds that were planted with the green code and council support with supplementals is starting to bear fruit from my assessment of where we're at. The team is really working through the drafts, bringing in Quest now as a consultant, and they've really helped us further along the effort. So today we're going to be presenting to you a PowerPoint that will help keep me on point and raise awareness of where we stand. Give me one moment, please.
Dino, would you mind shutting your blinds a little bit? The sun's like coming right into you. I think you'd be able to be seen better if we just tip them up a little bit. Yeah, I think that's better.
That's the Arizona sun. Okay.
I know. Let's put it to good work.
So can you see that shared screen?
Yes. Good job, Dino. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So again, here's our IGCC update. The performance measure, this aligns with the performance measure under sustainable growth and development 4.18 to reduce community greenhouse gas emissions by 80% of 2015 levels by 2050 and achieve community carbon neutrality by 2060. This first slide here is going to bullet each following slide in order, and it's going to this is just an updates and highlights and overview. We're going to discuss the internal 2018 IGCC code review, draft 1, and again that was just internal staff. I want to recap the fiscal year 21-22 budget supplemental funds and how those were used. Then we're going to go into how the collaboration between the internal staff and the consultant combined code review, draft 2. And then we'll dive a little bit into the fiscal year 2022 and 23 budget supplemental funds that were a little bit expanded and are going to help us further along this effort. And then we'll dive into the next steps as we keep moving forward and working. So our first slide here takes us to the internal 2018 IGCC code review, draft 1. So internal staff, which was our green building code development team, was actually completed mid-March of 2022. And what that looked like was weekly meetings that we literally went through the code line by line, chapter by chapter, section by section. It was a collaborative effort internally that included city departments that were called upon at key intervals. So for example, certain chapters pertain to water conservation. So we were visited by water conservation staff that helped us along to make sure that that chapter didn't interfere with current city code. We also brought in planning, Ryan Hvac and team. Engineering was there. Donna was there to help us because there was some drainage and grading related water conservation efforts within the code wrapped up in there. So she helped us along there. Obviously, she's a big member of the team anyway, but having her knowledge was really helpful in that area. We worked through chapters 3 through 10. That was the focus of our review. And we made sure that the Tempe Climate Action Plan was our guide. So many of the key areas of the Tempe Climate Action Plan were brought over to ensure that how this code was being developed was in line with that climate action plan. Because to us, that is the city's vision and that is the direction in which they want to go. So we felt very strongly that the green code should be aligned with that. So we did do a successful draft 1 completion. That is a great positive. And that brought us really simultaneously, I think it apex very well into the utilization of the fiscal year 21-22 building safety received budget approval and of the supplemental for a green building program specialist. Those funds were limited. They were 63,000 plus and some change, I believe. And because of the limited amount of funds, they were used towards a consultant to assist with code development. It went out for RFP, and Quest was chosen as a consultant. And I'll tell you a little bit about Quest as we move on to the next slide. So we started to perform our internal consultant combined code review, which was under a draft 2. So we brought our draft 1 into another batch of meetings, again, with the same internal staff that was in the previous draft 1 meetings, but now we were joined by the consultant. And they worked with us going through that draft 1 and providing suggestions to us. So they joined our staff towards the end of March 2022. My apologies, there's a dust storm warning. They brought their past experience from Scottsdale's green code adoption. They worked very closely with Scottsdale, and that was one of the things we valued about bringing in Quest. And let me tell you, their knowledge is extensive. They have a great team there, very positive, and very open and understanding to what the city of Tempe needs, how we want to design our code. So we have a lot of respect for what they brought to us. They worked with staff in weekly meetings, as I've said, chapters 3 through 10, pounded it out. Again, that's just roll your sleeves up and go to work. It really is what it is. You're assigned, I mean, you're talking 2-hour, 2.5-hour meetings sometimes. So it's intense, but it is the labor that needs to be done in order to get a comprehensive code written and developed.
Dino, I just want to jump in for a minute. I mean, that sounds really labor intensive, the whole process. And I just want to jump in and say thank you so much for all your efforts. And please thank the entire team that participated in that for me. Thank you,
Of
Dino.
course.
Go
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
I had to say thank
No.
you right then.
No problem. And the good news is, again, there was a prize at the end of those efforts, and that is we did complete a draft 2, May of 2022. That was our last meeting, and it is in the consultant's hands, and they're putting together some more. And I'll move to the next slide here. And I could double back on some of that, but they are going to put together basically a code, a draft 2 final example of what we produced, including a checklist. There's a couple different options that we could go with that they used in Scottsdale, but it did model itself a lot off the Scottsdale code because Scottsdale has had a lot of experience and success. They are ahead of us. Not that it's a competition, but they are ahead of us in not only their adoption voluntary, but now they're going mandatory. So they are, several years ahead, but the code that we developed was along the same lines of their mandatory. However, ours is intent on being voluntary. So once we receive back those drafts from them, we will then meet again and keep moving forward. Now I'm going to bring up this slide on fiscal year 2022-23, and I'll talk more about the continued efforts in the last slide of the presentation. So the fiscal year 2022-23 budget supplemental fund. So the supplementals that went in for the FY 22-23 were expanded a bit. And we received great council support, so we do thank you. And what had happened was we received the position for the Green Building Senior Sustainability Specialist, a lot of S's there, and the Green Code Consultant Services. roughly 115,000 for the position, and the contract services at 75,000. We're going to continue to maximize the effectiveness of that contract services and utilize Quest as our consultant to keep bringing us along. As part of that, though, the green building specialist position is intended to lead the green building program, which is not developed yet. First, we have to have a code before we create a program. So we're trying to get that code, and we're moving along steadily. But we need to have that code in place before there's any program, obviously, to implement the code. So inevitably, our partner, Quest, is going to help us along with that green building program also. I'm going to move to the next slide. And here's the next steps. So Quest is going to provide a draft 2 outline and the 2018 Igcc code checklist. So when you provide a draft 2 outline, what you end up with is you can produce a checklist off of the draft outline. And it's very helpful, especially when you're in a awareness phase, because mind you, this is a new code. It's not a new code adoption. This would, in this essence, even though it's voluntary, the intent is voluntary, it's still a new code. So raising awareness is important, and things like checklists really help everyone. The city pilot projects continue. The intent is to implement that checklist and roll them into the city pilot projects. We've got Fire Station 7, we've got Hvac, Fire Station 2, and Clark Park. I am not deeply involved in those projects other than probably from a plan review standpoint, obviously, as plan review manager in building safety. But Dr. Braden Kay and his team are closely watching those projects and working very closely with our other city partners on those projects to ensure that they are green type projects.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Just
Sure.
Is Braden attending those meetings or included actually in the meetings themselves, or just being advised? Do you know?
I don't want to speak for him, but I know with his vast knowledge that he always expresses of them and his active, engaged approach, I can't imagine that he wouldn't be. So I would bet to say that he is.
Okay, it just makes it so much easier when they're involved right from the beginning, speaking from knowledge. So thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. Yes, I would believe he is. Again, the internal consultant collaboration will continue throughout 2022, culminating in a final draft and a green building program. That is the ultimate goal. We hope we don't have to go really far past the draft 2, but we hope we can kind of leap into a final draft, which I think we can, but inevitably it needs to bear on its own fruit in the form of a green building program. And that's something that will be a spin-off, and utilizing the checklist. Again, we'll have those pieces in place to help us along the way. We're a little bit redundant here, but it's very important that we continue to collaborate with our consultants and all of our partners to develop that green building program. So to just have a code doesn't really help the organization in its end goal to really implement something like this, whether it be, again, voluntary or not. Okay, so the long-term goals is that we need to have that program in place. And that's where those funds being approved in that supplemental for that specialist position really helps, because that person can head up, and with their background and experience can head up that program, and a good candidate could come in and really help the organization. So that's what we foresee. August 2022, the intent is to present to council for a policy that all new City of Tempe buildings will comply with Igcc. Now, what exactly that looks like, I don't want that bullet to be a little bit ambiguous, but it's we're still in the final workings, obviously, of what the code would probably look like. Again, it is not a very aggressive code. The effort was to have a code that is acceptable and that is really consistent with the Valley. Scottsdale, obviously, sort of leading the way, okay? Early fall 2022, final draft developed as a voluntary code. I cannot emphasize that enough. This code, the whole intent from the start, going back 3 years to when I first was asked to join by Chris Thompson, who's no longer with the organization, when I took over as acting building official in his absence. He said it then, and I'm saying it now, along with the entire team. The intent was this was developed as a voluntary code. So I really want to emphasize that.
Have emphasized that many times.
Yeah, because we.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is it okay, Chair, if I speak?
Oh, fall 2022
Yes,
stakeholder.
yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
I'll wait and finish. I'll do it at the end.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Dino.
Oh, my apologies. I'm breaking up, so I'm not sure what was said.
You could just finish.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're fine, Dino. Just proceed.
Okay. My apologies. Sorry, I did not hear what was said. Fall 2022 stakeholder engagement to present final draft and seek feedback. Always important to reach out to our stakeholders and engage our public. And we're going to need that final draft and feedback before obviously moving forward to any sort of discussion about adoption as voluntary. Next slide. And I'd like to open it up for questions.
Councilmember Cubie, did you have some questions?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dino. Thanks. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I know we've come a long way. I really do appreciate that. And I know it's involuntary. It's been said many times. I really wish we were following the lead of Scottsdale, and I'm hoping that when Scottsdale is going into a mandatory program, that we'll be able to follow that lead and take more action, because we're talking about potentially developing 3/4 of all of Tempe's land if this proposal is approved by the Coyotes Entertainment District. 3/4 of our land, and not to have this in place, at such a crucial time in our history is kind of, it's disappointing. But there's been so much work that's been done, and I want to acknowledge that. And I believe that I believe this next council is really might be interested in really taking a further step. I want to thank so much Chair Adams, Councilmember Adams, for your championing this. If you hadn't championed it, we wouldn't be here at this point. And I know that you're gonna, I don't want to use all the sports metaphors, but you're gonna get it over the finish line this fall. I'll be sad not to be there, but I'll be cheering you on. I just want to thank you for your commitment and for the commitment of Dino and staff and the Sustainability and Resilience Office. And I know that beyond that, you can even champion it beyond just a voluntary code, because it's so important that we, with us growing up, not out, that we really realize the potential. So I do want to thank you so much, Jennifer. If not for you, I don't think we'd be here at this point. I do want to mention, and I know that I checked, the website's not updated, but we have our greenhouse, our carbon neutrality goal is actually 2050, not 2060. The council approved that, I think, back in the fall or early winter, and it hasn't been updated. And I know Braden has asked strategic management to do that. So Braden and Keely, if you wouldn't mind asking them again so we could have an update, so we can have the slides reflect that, that'd be great. So thank you so much. This is my last meeting, and this is one of the things I had on my list, my very long list when I first got on council, and to see it take this step forward is really heartening. I thank you for all the work that got us to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kuby. And I will tell you that we, in your absence, I'm guaranteed that we're going to continue to work very hard and water those seeds that you planted, and Councilmember Adams' seeds that both of you planted here. I think mandatory, what I tried to do and what the team always tried to do is listen to feedback. And that word, unfortunately, I have to repeat it again, as voluntary. That word came up a lot in the early days, and it still is being said today. And the way the code is written in such a way that it could evolve into mandatory, but definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also possibilities when you talk to developers and when we're doing development agreements, we have the power as individual council members to say we want to see that be fulfilled, right? And so it's not as if it's like voluntary to mandatory. There's a lot of gradations in between, and it's a matter of what the council's will is for, especially for development agreements, especially if you look at this, you know, if the TED district does get approved, there's definitely a possibility of doing that. It's just a matter of, is there political will? I know that's not your foci. You have to be focused on getting the work done. But if there's political will in the council, we can make this happen faster in separate projects as well.
I agree, Councilmember QB. I mean, we the developers are voluntarily giving to our Hometown for All a program, and I certainly would be the first in line to ask if the TED district does go forward, that we have a green code in it. So I agree, and don't worry, I'll keep carrying the water on this issue. It's near and dear to my heart, and yeah, we can make it happen. So thank you, and thank you for your kind words. I can't imagine not having you in this committee together because we have accomplished a lot, and very proud of what we've accomplished, and very proud of these efforts with the Green Building Code. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Adams, can I have
Sure.
a moment to answer your previous question?
Okay, great. That'd be great.
It was such an important and excellent question, so I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to fully answer. So the way that it's worked is we've had the opportunity for the, all of this work is such a tremendous partnership between our elected officials and including you and Councilmember QB, as well as community development and all the amazing work of Donna and Dino and Jeff and Shelly and Josh and others, and also engineering transportation. And so they've played a really big role in this as well. So what engineering transportation has done is they've worked with each architect, and it just so happens on three of the three projects, two of the projects already had Quest on those projects. And so Quest was able to use the Scottsdale checklist both for TMOC and for Fire Station 2. And then the consultants on Clark Park were also excellent consultants and are also using the Igcc checklist. So the basically what we're doing with these city projects is we're using the Scottsdale version of the code to guide Clark Park, TMOC, and which is the Tempe Municipal Operations Center for the people that don't know the short version, and for Fire Station 2. So, and what we found is that it's such a much more streamlined process of making green choices than what we did in Fire Station 7, which was kind of do it as this a la carte menu. And we've seen a lot of advantages to using it over LEED, which as you know, Councilmember Adams, from your time working with the city, those LEED buildings are great, but LEED kind of pushes you towards certain technologies and can make building certain types of buildings difficult. So we found Igcc in these three projects to be a streamlined process. We're getting really good green building components, but we're not getting pushed to using cutting edge technologies that might be really hard on the facilities team. So, and Charlie Bladine and the facilities team have been involved in each of these three, projects, and have been in those conversations using the Igcc checklist. So we're very confident, based on the 3 city pilot projects, that this is a great system for us to use for city buildings moving forward. And it allows us to walk the talk, so that when we go to develop, when you have those conversations with developers, we have multiple city buildings we've been using in this direction, and we can really speak from experience. Thanks for the opportunity to give a little bit more detail to your excellent question.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, Dr. K. I really appreciate that, and I can hardly stand that Scottsdale is ahead of us on this issue, but so let's pass them up as soon as we can. So I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, because the LEED building, like you said, it had a lot of challenges at TCC. So I appreciate that clarification. It sounds like this is kind of a good happy medium, and it's much more user friendly. So I'm liking it. So thank you so much. Councilmember QB, did you have any more questions for anyone regarding this subject? Okay. All right. See none. Okay. Well, thanks, Dino. Now we can go back to the top of the list and item A14, a dog park update with Craig Hayden. Craig, I'm excited to hear what you've got for us.
Thank you, council members Adams and QB. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update. This is in follow-up to our April presentation where we had an opportunity to review where dog parks are at within the city and some of the updates. I'm here to really cover a couple of things. First, I want to frame the discussion around the performance measure 3.16 under quality of life. We see dog parks being a key component within the recreational opportunities that we provide our diverse community, and we believe that dog parks are a key piece of that within our specific park system. And today I'll be following up specifically on the Broadmoor Elementary School question. I was asked to provide an update, and I appreciate, while I was out of the office last month, that I could fit it in, Councilmember QB, at your last committee meeting. I appreciate your service, and I've always appreciated you and your questions and your leadership. So this is a great opportunity, I hope, to provide kind of an update on where we're at with the Broadmoor Elementary School, and then provide some seasonal turf repair updates, because we're at that key period where we see heavy use within our dog parks and our parks within the fall, winter, and spring. And this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we're providing not just accessible, but also sustainable facilities for our pets as well. So on the Broadmoor Elementary School site, I've got a couple pictures here. One, just situating it within the Broadmoor Elementary School and the Broadmoor Elementary School footprint off of Apley, and LaCorda on the very kind of northeastern section in that red box. And then I've got a picture of what that Google Street View looks like on the bottom left for the area that we'll be talking about. Just over a year ago, the school was making some preparations for the site to make it a dog park at the city's request, if that would be something they would be willing to consider. They were very amenable to doing that. Maybe it was a little bit over a year ago now. And with that, they opened it up for a short period of time and then have since closed it down. What is now Keith Burke, our deputy city manager, had recently met with the new school superintendent, Dr. Driscoll, to see what the future looks like for that site, knowing that they made some improvements. It's currently a fenced-in area. It doesn't meet the standards that we would have for a city dog park, but would they be open to a conversation? It is not currently a high priority with the school district getting ready to open back up after the summer break, but they would be open to a future conversation later in this calendar year. We would love to approach the school district and have that conversation about that area specifically, but also more broadly, that is one of the unique areas within the city that doesn't have a park within from Broadway to Southern, rural over to Mill Avenue. So we would love to open up the conversation, certainly about that footprint that we've identified here, but also other recreational access that we could provide, and potentially in partnership with the school if that's something that they're amenable to. So as it sits now,
Craig, can I
Yep.
interrupt you for a second?
Totally.
So you said that it was open, the dog park was open, and now it's closed?
Yeah, it was open for a short period of time. From what I understand, there was some, they had received some comments from the neighborhood. From what I recall, they had closed it down. It's not a dog park within the same standards of what we would provide with the fencing height and some access. But after the city initiated a conversation if they would be open on that site, they've made some initial improvements to that fence and a gate, but that is something that has not been open for a period of time. And that's where we have asked them if that's something they would be willing to consider for a dog park. And if so, and the city would look at potentially partnering with the school, we would have to open up conversations about a potential agreement and then look at some standards, some outreach with the neighborhood.
Is it a financial problem? I mean, do they need more fencing, or can you get more specific?
That I don't know. And I apologize that I don't have the answers to.
Can I add something about
Sure,
this?
absolutely.
As the instigator here, and as someone, it's used as a de facto dog park, and there was a little gullet where dogs could sneak out, where my dog once snuck out, but people would sort of hop the fence. And they did go to make all those improvements, so a dog can't really escape unless they're, huge jumpers. I suppose they could. I don't think there was a dog waste receptacle. And so I think people were taking the dog waste and sort of dumping it in a nearby alley, which offended one resident. I believe there was just one resident's criticism. And, to me, like, the next step would be to to talk to the residents in the area about it, and not to shut down the idea entirely. Like, they've already spent the money to do to create the fencing, so it is a self-enclosed space now. And it's a shame not to, I mean, open up to future conversation. It seems like it's in our court. We had one resident who was irate about it, and then we shut it down completely. And it just seems like maybe we could have a public process to reconsider that, and perhaps put a dog waste station in that the city would, empty now and again. But I think that was a problem with it.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, Councilmember QB, so that's good information. Perhaps Burdetta could help us with this also, Councilmember QB? Would she
Yeah,
be
or I
able
don't
to-
know. I mean, I don't know if it's just worthwhile. I mean, I'm happy also to reach out to Superintendent Driscoll, but
Okay,
I really kind of think the ball is in our court, because
okay,
they wanted to be, I mean, you see that big area too, to the south, that area is all enclosed as well. But it's also used by the students, and they don't want, dog waste getting in people's way there. But it's a shame when you have all the physical openness of that space not to have multiple uses, because, our city, our residents always support the bond initiatives and increases for the schools. And I think there should be more recreational opportunities in the school, the school yards and school areas, if it's possible, So that's also another possibility. Maybe that's the future conversation. But I think with that small space, it just seems worthwhile thinking about having a public discussion with neighbors and asking them about it, because that is an area that does not have a lot of capacity. It doesn't have much access to dog parks except Clark Park, which is a couple miles away.
okay, so, how would you like to proceed forward with that then, Councilmember QB?
Well, I'm leaving tomorrow, so
What? You're not leaving until, the Friday, so.
what is the possibility of having that discussion with neighborhood services, or just seeing if we could have a public discussion about it? Because it was one person, maybe there are others. For every one person, maybe there's other people that would complain, but one person kind of shut it down.
Okay, well, that's, that sounds like it might be the vocal minority, and I don't like to make decisions based on that. So, okay, well,
I know we
let's
can't
see.
give direction here, but Craig, maybe you could say, what is the process if we wanted to have that be considered? Because I don't think it's true, it's not a priority for the district, but they've done all that they can do, right? We would need to obviously maintain, if there was a waste receptacle there, we'd probably have to be the ones to empty it and maintain it. But what is the process if we wanted to create it as a more accepted park?
So if it were to be a dog park, we would want to make sure that the school is on board with that. And we would love to
Right.
have that conversation later this calendar year. With that, and it would be something that we would potentially look at partnering with the school to service, like McCamey has some ball fields that we're able to utilize for programming, but we're also responsible for some maintenance. We would have to enter into an agreement with that. And that would be something that we would have that conversation with the school district, ensure that's the direction they would like to go. And then we would outline a path if that's something, whether it was there or somewhere else on site, maybe a better fit for it, as you mentioned, that we would have that conversation about. This site currently would not meet standards for a dog park within the city, within our parks. There is no accessible access for sidewalks, for gates. The fence is not high enough. So if we were to be putting in some capital funds for this or anywhere else on site, we would just want to make sure that we have an agreement.
What do
so
you mean
they have
not
the proper
accessible?
permissions
It's
to do so.
accessible from the sidewalk. There's a gate.
But
What do you
our
mean?
dog parks typically
Right.
have the double access gates with sidewalks that lead into the dog park onto an accessible surface as well.
Right, of course, that's true. Well, just be aware though, it's used as a dog park. It is in fact a dog
Totally
park.
understand.
So, okay, so Nikki, I know you're on the call. If you can go ahead and set up an appointment with the superintendent regarding this, I'd like to speak to him. I know Councilmember QB, I was trying not to let you off the hook, but I'll go ahead and follow up with him myself and just see if we can get this moving, because I'm not comfortable if it's already being used. I would like to make this happen, because we've been talking about dog parks since I was on council, and now it's been 4 years. So it's something near and dear to my heart. So I'll just go ahead and take that forward and see what we can do. Because I know staff is really busy, and I don't want to cause you more headaches.
And they are completely open to the conversation. They've just asked us to wait until after school opens to come back in the fall.
Okay, all right. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead with your presentation.
And then just a quick update on, as I mentioned, fall, winter and spring are an incredibly busy time for our 6 dog parks. Just want to highlight a couple of some improvement projects. We've got some pictures below for Mitchell Park, which was one of our original dog parks. As you can see on the left, as we entered in early May, saw some significant wear from those winter months. And then some in-process pictures of replacing some of the turf. A lot less replaced turf this year compared to last year, which is nice. And then finally, the picture on the right before the dog park opened back up recently. We also have made improvements at one of the 2 halves at Papago is back open. The second half has received some improvements. And then Creamery Park as well is currently has some new sod that is getting established. And then we will look at later this summer between July and August, making some more minor improvements over the dog park at the Tempe Sports Complex. Not as significant as what we made last year, but we are continue to be committed, not just on the capital side, but also on the operations side to make sure that we are providing some attractive and usable facilities for our dog parks.
Yeah, they look really great. Talking about an improvement. I love it. I'm sure the dogs are happy too. Nice and soft on their paws.
Absolutely.
Very good.
All right. And I'll be happy to take any questions, and I'll unshare my screen, but I appreciate your time and the opportunity to provide an update. And I'll be happy to work with Nikki to provide an opportunity to come back later on in the fall, potentially, if you would like for us to connect back up with the school district as well, so that we allow them to kind of get through the rush. But we certainly would be happy to do that if that would be something that you would like for us to do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, and then just on any other potential dog parks up in South Tempe, are we looking at any others down there? Because
we are.
Okay, can you
exciting
talk
opportunity at Kiwanis Park on the north side, right off of Baseline and Mill. We're anticipating Ash that we're just entering a design process. Will be an outreach this fall, and we're looking at a dog park there within one of our regional parks. So that is more south central Tempe, but also an opportunity to provide what may be a great experience in an area, Kiwanis Park on the north side there.
Okay. Okay, very good. Councilmember Cubie, do you have any other questions?
Oh, no, just in hopes at some point that we'd have a water feature for dogs, so dogs in Tempe could swim.
I think that's some input that we'd love to get during the outreach process as we look at some preliminary planning and try to identify what that would be and what some of those costs would be and if it's feasible.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that would be a little splash pad for the dogs. Councilmember Cubie.
Yeah, Chicago has some really cool splash pads, and dogs just kind of push their paw, or then water just kind of comes out at a punctuated time. There's just like a lot of really inventive kind of water fountains for dogs. Even if it's not a big, large scale where they can swim, there's ways to bring water into, without wasting water, but bring water into the picture. So thank you.
Very good. Yeah, I like that idea. So, all right. Craig, did you have anything else for us?
No, thank you both very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for the update. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to keep having you come back and giving updates and things. And just want to really keep pushing this forward. And we are going to have a dog park in Clark Pool, or Clark Recreation after it's all done, correct?
Yeah, Clark Park does have one currently, and it is currently open during construction, and it will be obviously surrounded by a newer park around with playground, ramadas, the pool, and rec center. Absolutely. Okay.
And refresh me, does Escalante have a dog park?
It does not. We have the closest one to Escalante is Creamery Park, which is just on the other side of McClintock. And then we have Papago has one, as well as JC, a very small one, Tempe Sports Complex, and Mitchell Park.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Craig. I really appreciate the feedback, and we'll keep it going. We'll now move on to item 4A2, lead for cities and carbon disclosure. And I think we're going to hear from Grace Kelly and Henry Pearson on this one. Grace?
Oh, I'm actually going to go first. This is Henry. I'll be presenting about lead for cities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Henry. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, can we all see this?
Yes.
All right. My name's Henry Pearson, and I'm a climate action fellow at the city. And part of my job has been to help with Tempe's Lead for Cities application. So I'm sure you all know about LEED, which is the building certification program through the U.S. Green Building Council, and Tempe Transit Center. That's a platinum LEED building in our city. So in 2018, Lead for Cities, or LEED, decided to start the cities program, which certifies cities in the same way. You can be certified and you can go up to silver, gold, or platinum. These are based on the overall sustainability of the city. So social, economic, environmental factors all play a part in how you're certified. So why would we want to be certified? Well, firstly, we can use our results as a benchmark for improvement in the future. So we're going to submit our first application this year, or we've already submitted it, and we'll get our results back and we can see places where we excel and places where we need to improve. It also helps us improve our data collection and tracking. So we can look at data that we didn't have for this application and hopefully integrate that into future operations. It also allows us to see how we fare with sustainability in relation to other cities. We can see cities in Arizona and other states that scored and see how their scores are relative to us and help us sort of contextualize the work that we're doing and how it's progressing. It also helps us develop future investment strategies and action strategies. So our scores will highlight areas where we excel and can also show us where we could use some more investment in the future. So our process began in mid-2021. We began work on the credits. So it's broken up into credits, and each credit is a specific part of the sustainability of the city. So each of those involves a write-up, and those began in September, along with our data collection and write-ups through the month of May. And then we submitted in May. And so now we are waiting on the initial review where they're going to give us some feedback. And then we can incorporate that feedback, revise, and then submit for final review where our certification and score will be given. So some other cities in the Valley have done the STAR certification program. So this was before LEED for Cities was really operational. There was a STAR system where you could be certified. And in 2018, LEED sort of absorbed that into their LEED for Cities program. So Peoria, Tucson, and Chandler had all completed the STAR certification. And once LEED absorbed STAR, they sort of grandfathered them in. So they haven't actually gone through the LEED process, and they're only listed as certified, which is sort of the lowest level, but they are certified. And then Phoenix is platinum, which is really good. They were an early adopter of the program, one of the first cities to complete it. Back then, it was 2018, I believe. The requirements were a little different. They hadn't really fully fleshed out how they wanted to do it. So our process was different than Phoenix. It was a little longer and then required more things, but Phoenix was a pioneer there. So our goal, conservatively silver or gold, hopefully. We don't know what our score will be yet, but we're hoping to be somewhere around there, and then we can use that as sort of our baseline. So during our application, we really got into the weeds of what data we collect and our programs and where we have strengths and where we have weaknesses. So we really exceeded with the quality of life section. Our work with environmental justice, the sustainability office has really done great things there. And we just have a lot of improving trends for people's quality of life across the city. VMT, so vehicle miles traveled, we're quite good there. We have, relative to other cities, where we do rather well, which is interesting given our sort of car-centric,
Henry,
the valley is. Sorry?
yeah, on the VMT, I think it's really helpful to like spell that out. What I mean, I know what it is, but I just for our residents, that a lot of them won't necessarily know that. So
Oh, yeah.
if we could have that spelled out, that would be really helpful.
Okay, yeah. So it's vehicle miles traveled.
Uh-huh.
So it's really just a summation of all the driving that's done within Tempe, excluding driving that's done through Tempe. So we didn't count trips that are done, say, from Phoenix to Chandler, where you go through Tempe. It's trips that originate in Tempe or trips that end up in Tempe. All the miles driven by those cars within our city are added up, and that's the total VMT.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, innovation, there's a section for innovation where you can kind of highlight programs that you have that aren't specifically in the application. So 2 of those that we showcased were Cool Kids and Envision Tempe. The Sustainability Office has done a lot of great work with community outreach and the resilience hubs, and so we definitely excelled there. We also spotted some weaknesses. So waste, we had some issues with construction and demolition tracking and recycling programs that just weren't fully documented and we weren't able to fully report on. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of waste programs in Tempe are private. So it's sort of a collaboration and we don't really have much access to the private stuff. So that's something that we can improve on. Water usage is unsurprisingly pretty high here in the desert. So that's a really large place that we can improve our score a lot if we were to reduce like our per capita water usage, which is, I'm sure, always been our goal, but that's a big one. And they asked for a comprehensive ecosystem assessment. And so this was really a documentation of the flora, the fauna, the soils, the topography, everything within our habitat. And we created one, but I think we can really improve that and really get into the weeds on our endangered species, our native species, and how we can integrate them into our built design.
Chair Adams, may I interrupt?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Henry. I just wanted to ask, and maybe this is a question for Braden, or perhaps you know, Henry, but considering the water usage measurement and metric, we have implemented the first stage of our drought preparedness plan. And I know we've long talked, and it just kind of occurred to me, we've long talked about establishing a goal for gallons of water used per person. And I know Tucson sort of leads the way. Is there discussion within your shop of establishing a goal of water used per person or per household?
I can handle that, Henry. So there have been discussions over the years of increased performance measures for water use and the opportunity to look further at deeper implementation. The current drought stage 0 is really just a stage that includes monitoring. It's not a stage that includes a lot of increased conservation activities. So there is a lot of, this is a place where, using a national standard, there's very specific standards for water use and water programs. And for example, a lot of California cities, have a lot of different regulatory tools that they use that we don't use in Arizona. So when we're compared to water conservation at that kind of national scale, it's hard for Arizona cities to score particularly high on when this type of national framework is used. So there is a ton of opportunity for increased conversation with municipal utilities and with strategic management about additional opportunities for measurement and additional programs that could be put in place. And obviously our office is more than happy to be a part of those discussions.
Thank you. I know we're much less dependent on CAP water, Central Arizona Project water, than other cities, but still, I mean, we're probably going to have some bad news about increase in tier declarations in August, and I just think we need to do our part. Well, I'm just speaking to the choir here, but I'm hopeful that there'll be a performance measure that will really reflect our conservation mentality. So thank you.
I have to jump in. I completely agree, Councilmember QB. We're heading for bad news. So as much as we can get ahead of it, that would be great. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. K, or whoever, or Henry.
Okay. So we are currently in the initial review process, and that takes about 5 weeks. So they will return to us with changes that we can make to our application, and then that will proceed to final review, and then we will get our certification. Following that, we'll definitely have some sort of public announcement to our city to show how our community and other cities how the work we are doing is really making a change. And finally, then we can use that score and use the feedback that we get to really figure out where we can make the most improvement, and then hopefully in the future improve our score even more. Thank you, and if you have any questions, feel free.
Councilmember Cubie, do you have any questions?
No questions, but thank you so much, Henry. Really great presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Henry. Just curious, like, are we talking to Green Code people? You guys working together with the lead also?
Yeah,
Okay. My concern is the Tempe Transit Center is just a nightmare and has been since the day it was built to maintain. I remember the urinals, don't work, they get plugged up. I mean, we had a terrible time with how the air conditioning was set up. So I really am a little bit, and I'm sure I'm biased, but it's based on what my experience was. I'm a little concerned about the lead buildings, and just am wondering if we're looking at all options. I don't know. Dr. K, do you want to talk to that or speak to that?
Yeah, I do. So this is what, as a Office of Sustainability and Resilience matures, and ours is, our program is maturing. We have to use different tools for different areas of our work. And so this is a case where we're really deciding to go with Igcc for buildings, and then using LEED only for the city certification. So we don't plan to use LEED for buildings anymore. That's what Igcc is for. So this version of LEED is just the city certification tool that they have. We don't plan on using them, for upcoming individual building projects. So when they use the word LEED, that's sort of the overall program, but they have different tools, one for buildings, they actually have one for neighborhoods, and then this for cities. So in this case, when we say LEED, we're using LEED for cities. We're not using their building product.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That makes you feel much better. So very good, very good. Okay, any other questions, Councilmember Cubie or for Henry? Or okay, Henry, thanks for the great
Thank you.
presentation. Are you new to the city, Henry?
I've actually been here for about a year working on, I work on the CDP, and I did some work with the Climate Action Plan update, and now we're doing CDP again, which Grace is about to talk about, and the annual report. So,
Okay, well, welcome to the city, Henry, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Great.
So,
Thanks so much.
Grace, you had an update also? Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember Adams, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint and we'll start an update on carbon disclosure reporting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you, Councilmember Adams and Councilmember Cubie, for the opportunity to provide an update on carbon disclosure reporting. So we call it CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project, and I'll go through what it is, give a little background, talk about the timeline, just describe the data that we report on. This is our 6th year. This is an annual submittal, and also go over kind of the scores that we received in the last 6 years. So first, just to go over a few of these organizations, we have CDP, which is the Carbon Disclosure Project, ICLE, which is Local Governments for Sustainability, and GCOM, which is Global Covenant of Mayors. So with Global Covenant of Mayors, the council and mayor joined in 2016 and pledged to measure emissions and set targets to reduce emissions and prepare for the future impacts of climate change. Next, ICLE is a local governments for sustainability. So Tempe staff uses the ICLE software ClearPath to conduct community and municipal greenhouse gas emissions inventories. And council was presented with the most recent 2020 greenhouse gas inventory for the community and the municipal operations. So then CDP is the Carbon Disclosure Project. So they coordinate global environmental reporting for companies, cities, governments, and utilities. So the three organizations work together, and when we submit the report to CDP, we pull data from ICLE's database, and then we reports to CDP, and our data goes on to the Global Covenant of Mayors. So on their website, we can look at the previous year's reports for Tempe. We can look at other cities' reports that are in the Global Covenant of Mayors, and they have access to our reports also. So here's a timeline of the milestones since we started reporting to CDP. In 2016, the city joined the Global Covenant of Mayors. In 2017, the first greenhouse gas emissions inventory was done using ICLE ClearPath software. In 2018, council adopted the municipal goal for carbon neutrality. In 2019, council adopted approved the first climate action plan and adopted the community carbon neutrality goal of 2060. And then in 2021, the second greenhouse gas emissions inventory was done. And in 2022, council approved the second climate action plan and the new goal for community carbon neutrality by 2050. So we submitted a CDP report each year since 2017, and the above milestones were included in each of the year's reports. So what data is reported? We report on greenhouse gas emissions inventories. We report on climate risk and vulnerability, such as extreme heat and drought. We include the community carbon neutrality goal of 2050. So that's included. They ask for updates on mitigation goals and actions. So these come from the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Action Plan update, as well as adaptation goals and actions from the Climate Action Plan and Climate Action Plan update. So the actions include budget and capital funded projects, as well as grant funded projects. For example, community EV charging infrastructure, which council funded in this year's budget, and resilient energy hubs, which is also funded by council. So this, they would be included in this year's report. So the CDP report, they take our report and they forward it on to CDP cities, the Global Covenant of Mayors, Race to Zero, and the Carbon Climate Registry. So these are other organizations that we partner with. And one of the things we will show in this year's report is how much progress was made in community carbon emissions reductions from 2015 to 2020. There was a 16% reduction in emissions, and we're very excited to show that in this year's report.
That's great.
So this slide shows our report cards since we started reporting. So starting at the bottom, there's starting at the bottom of 2017, it wasn't scored, but then 2018 and 2019, we received a D. And then in 2020 and 2021, which Henry helped us with, we moved up to a B grade. So we're really hoping this year that with the new climate action plan and the new greenhouse gas emissions inventory and a new target that we're hoping for an A this year. No pressure, Henry.
Go for it, Henry.
And so we submit on July 27th. We'll submit the report. Next steps are to continue to work on the climate action plan update actions and then to continue annual reporting to show progress. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Cubby, do you have questions for Grace?
As ever, Grace, you know how much I respect you, mad respect. I'm sad to not be working with you in the future, but maybe on the commission, we will. But I expect at some point you'll be giving an update to council on this work, but also on how we've advanced with our 100% renewable energy goal by 2035 and presenting to council. We used to do that pretty much like every 6 months or so.
Yes.
Because that's actually one of the main reasons that motivated me to run for a different office, because I feel like there's a lot the state can do to really set signals so that utilities work with cities and come up with good big projects that cities can adopt. So I'm hoping that the council will get to see an update of this information and about our advancing toward our energy goal.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Councilmember QB. And we just had another milestone with renewable energy with the SRP Sustainable Energy Offering. The 2.4 megawatts that they built, well, they built a 100 megawatt plant, and Tempe is getting 2.4 megawatts from that utility scale plant, and that just came online in the last few months. So
great.
I'm happy to give an update.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you, Grace.
That'd be great. And also, is the sustainability committee included in? Don't they sometimes come like the chair also in the council presentations? Yeah, is my memory off, which is a high possibility.
We can do that. We can bring in the sustainability commission chair as well.
Okay, I was just thinking that I just want to make sure they feel included. And
oh, sure. Yeah, we often give them the presentation either before or after the council meeting. So yeah, we'll definitely include the commission.
Okay. I just thought it might be nice for them, just because I know that they've written us letters and things in the past. So I'm trying to avoid future letters. So, but yeah, anyway, that'd be great. I don't really have any questions. Councilmember Cubby, do you have any other questions? This is great.
No, I'm good.
It's great. It's great news. I think it'd be great to bring to council and, share that we've gone from D to B's and hopefully A next time, and love the numbers. I mean, that's so fantastic to see that we are going down. So in a good way. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, okay. So now, Grace, did you have anything else, or Dr. K? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll now move ahead to item 4B, new items for consideration. And today, I believe we have two new items. The first is item 4B1, sustainable facilities, a topic near and dear to my heart. Our facilities maintenance manager, the amazing Charlie Bleen, is here to talk to us, or Bleeding. Sorry, Charlie, is here to talk to us about that. So go ahead and turn it over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. And can you guys hear me all right? For whatever reason, I'm having a hard time getting my camera to work.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I'm going to turn you up, Charlie, because you're not terribly loud.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better. I
Okay.
think we're good. Sure.
All right. I'm sorry, for whatever reason, my camera's not working. So I'll just start going through, and as you have questions, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
So first, thank you for having me, Councilmember Adams and Kubi. We are here today to talk about sustainable facilities, and I'm Charlie Bladeen, the facilities manager, and just wanted to go through and share some of what we're doing in facilities related to sustainability. And I think it fits well within a lot of the discussion that we've previously had of really developing goals, setting some performance measures, and where do we want to go in the future. And I'm hoping that going through this presentation this afternoon can kind of give you guys an idea of what we're doing in facilities, and then some of the goals and kind of direction that we feel is important as maintaining city facilities to the best of our ability. So with that, facilities fits within the safe and secure council priority areas, sustainability and growth and development, And then you can see the 3 different measures that we have there: city infrastructure and assets, facility condition index, and then also the carbon neutrality. Wanted to talk about some focus areas, and I'll go into each of these areas a little bit more in detail, so I won't spend time reading through each of these right now. But the first area I want to talk about is our building automation controls. And as Councilmember Adams and Grace remember, when we worked with Amorisco doing some performance contracting back in 2012, we had a whole bunch of buildings. I think it was about 40, 45 that we added building automation controls. And this really gave facilities the ability to monitor the buildings, but also to control and establish some certain set points for temperatures throughout the facilities. So right now we're in the process of identifying projects. The ones on the right are ones that we're working on currently, adding or updating building automation controls. And then the ones on the right are really what I call our future opportunities. Most of them are smaller buildings, but also at the same time, it's buildings that we don't have a lot of control over the HVAC system. And so this really gives us the ability to go in and to control those buildings remotely, not only from an energy standpoint, but we've also used it for best practices on ensuring kind of how the building functions. And I'll just use an example where some of that technology is going. We have a jail and it has a sump pump, and you can imagine there's items that get flushed down the toilet and it clogs up the sump pump and starts to back up the sewer. And so in the past, we've just waited till that happens and we come in, we snake it, we fix the motor and move forward. Now we actually have controls that when the motor shuts off, it's sending out notifications to our staff. And it really has helped us to be more proactive. We've also added some leak detections, locations in some areas that we've had some flooding and building water intrusion in the past.
Charlie, can I jump in for a
Sure.
second?
Absolutely.
Is that leak detection part of city hall council chambers? Because that smell that we've been smelling periodically, just kind of curious about.
Yeah, the leak detection's more hooked up to the pump itself. So when it fails, it notifies us. We do have the moisture liquid detection in both the mechanical room adjacent to the council chambers and then also in the boiler room. And then in each of the atriums coming out of the garden level area where we've had water back up and flood in there, we've added leak detection units.
Okay. And just going back to the jail, do we have a grinder in the jail?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Even with the grinder, we have trouble, huh?
Yeah, and it just, you get to the point where certain things get flushed down and the grinder just unfortunately can't eat up what's going through the system and produce a positive flow.
I get it. I love talking facilities with you, Charlie Bladeen.
Yeah, I bet you missed some of this.
Yeah, I do some of it. So that's awesome. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Go ahead.
Sure. So going into the next area is really taking some of the building controls and automation to another level, is really looking at some of our meeting room space. And in the past, we've tried to turn off and reset HVAC controls after certain hours of operations. And we found that doesn't always work well, that we might not know of a meeting room being used and the controls sets the temperature higher, and then it's uncomfortable for the occupants of those spaces. So now we're looking at putting in some motion censoring controls that'll detect when somebody's in those conference rooms and also really be able to override the systems. There's a few locations that we particularly think are important that we want to look at that over this next fiscal year. And it's the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, and then also at the library, some program rooms and the training center also there.
Very good.
let's see here. And then HVAC, as you guys know, HVAC takes up a considerable amount of energy throughout our facilities. And this has really been our opportunity to make an impact for the future generations of our citizens and our employees also. So we have focused a little bit more on the older HVAC units. Most of them are just package units or split system. And we have really worked hard to eliminate the R22 units. And that's the units that are older that have the refrigerant that helps to provide the cooling through the system. And it has been really our goal to get those out of our system. We're not far from really getting to the point that we won't have any R22 units. I would say maybe the end of this next fiscal year and probably going into the following. So that's a big accomplishment for us. I know I've talked to some cities and they're just kind of waiting for their equipment to fail before they replace them. We're trying to be a little bit more proactive, which I think will make a huge difference for us as we're moving forward.
And Charlie, aren't the new units so much more energy efficient?
Yeah, Councilmember Adams, they are, and there's also some new regulations that are coming out to make them even more efficient.
Oh,
so stay tuned. It's an area that's constantly evolving, and I think as a industry, we're probably heading in the right direction of where we need to go.
Charlie, do you know what the time frame is for the even more updated energy efficient units?
You know what? I talked to one of the manufacturers that we work a lot with, Train, and it sounded like they were actually retooling some of their plants right now and preparing for some new guidelines. And I think it was in the next year that those will be coming down.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. And then just some other potential HVAC projects. We're looking at a new boiler for City Hall. We are in the process of redesigning the garden levels, both the east and the west, with new fan coils, updated air handlers, and then really eliminating some of the old chilled water lines that have been problems for us for a number of years. Also, PD main courts, they're on our chilled water system. We're looking at probably a 3 different phase program over 3 years of replacing the air handlers there. 525 building, although it seems newer, it's hitting to the point that we need to do some substantial upgrades there, adding some new fan coils, and then just our numerous terminal package units and split units. That's really based a lot on our asset management plan of really looking at life cycle costs and deciding where we make the biggest bang for the buck on those.
Charlie, are the PD chillers, how are they holding up?
Good. So at PD courts, we have 3 main water chillers, and they serve the downtown campus with chilled water that then provides the cooling to a number of buildings. We have the old Tempe Performing Arts where Hvac is, the City Hall complex, the garden levels, the tower, PD Courts building, and then also to 525 and Illegal Pete's restaurant. And we just have gone through a major upgrade of replacing the chilled water line underneath 5th Street. And then the next phase is moving into the garden level areas.
Okay. So that's what that was. Okay. All right.
Yes.
But the units themselves are hanging in there?
Yeah, the chillers itself are in decent shape. It's just really the infrastructure that deliver the water throughout the inside of the facilities. The exterior now, with that pipe replaced, we're in a lot better shape than we had been, and we're making progress.
Good, great. That's good news. Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay. Lighting. So when we did the performance contracting back in time, LED lights really weren't at the point that they were all that affordable. And from really just a cost benefit analysis and some analysis, it didn't make sense to put in LED lights. So we at that time had gone from T12s down to T8s, and in some cases T5s. now we're finding that it makes no sense not to do LEDs. So, and for those of you that know, LEDs are so much more energy efficient. They also produce better light. We've got a whole bunch of projects that we've been working on and identifying to change out lights with LEDs. And a lot of it's the community centers. You know, they have everything from gym lights, the exterior lights, the office lights. We're also looking right now, we own the Mitchell School where Child's Play works out of. We're looking at getting a proposal to relamp that facility. Orchid House, we just relamped the second floor where the attorneys and neighborhood services folks are located. And then we're also working right now on a review of Apache PD. So stay tuned for that one.
Great.
Wanted to talk a little bit more. I know I had just mentioned about performance contracting. We had done something a little bit different this go around, and I know Councilmember Adams understands kind of what we went through with performance contracting last time. We brought in one vendor. We pretty much did a substantial amount of improvements to a lot of facilities. This route, and then also used that type of mechanism to measure and monitor reduction in energy and water savings. This time around, we went out for an RFP, and we have chosen 4 companies that are now on our on-call services list, where we can hire any of the 4 to come in and do building assessments from an energy standpoint, sustainability studies, analysis, really using kind of the experts in the field to provide the assessment. So we just are finishing most of the locations on the right with one of the vendors. We working with Braden and Grace, we decided to give each of the vendors either a building or a complex and have them put together an assessment of what efficiency measures that they could come back with us and recommend on saving energy and funding for the city. So we're hoping to get that done really in the next probably month and a half, and then use the data and the reports that they come back with to then go in and use the energy CIP funds under energy efficiency that both of you guys had helped increase that funding up to over $1 million, which we really hadn't had access to that level of funding before, and will really help to jumpstart some of the projects.
Great.
This is just kind of another, I wanted to kind of show you guys that here's a thermal gun, and this is in the conference room at one of the water facilities. And as we were doing the study, staff was saying, you know, it just gets so hot in this conference room, and it just feels like a lot of heat gain is coming through. So this was just one outcome that was identified, and then as a result of this, we will be looking at probably either replacing the windows or even doing some window treatments. Some other options are some tree placements outside the area to reduce the heat gain going through the windows and encourage some shade. And then also some window tinting. Whoops.
Charlie, Councilmember Cubey and I love trees. So the more trees, the better. Also, is that just like an example, the where you went back to the thermal? I mean, or is that actual real data from the windows themselves on that slide?
That's the real data from the windows themselves. And you can just, when we did this, it was a couple months ago, so it wasn't even as hot as it is now.
Can you just explain those a little bit? Because I can't, the pictures, like, is it the left picture that was before the improvements, or?
No, yeah, both of these are before the improvement. So it's
Okay.
really the darker red, orange is
Yes.
really where you're seeing the majority of the heat coming in.
Okay.
When they were pointing the guns directly at the window, that's kind of what they were seeing. As they got away from the window and more to the block, you wouldn't see that level of heat gain entering through the windows.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks, Charlie.
Sure.
Thanks. I was very curious.
And then last year we had, last fiscal year, this fiscal year, we did an assessment of the West Side Multi-Gen Center and did an energy audit. This was really the beginning of getting back into more of the audits and assessments prior to really hiring the 4 companies. And what the consultant came back with was really an overall energy savings of about 23% if we did a number of measures to reduce energy. And the overall project was probably a couple $100,000. And when you look at the energy budget and you think, wow, for a couple $100,000, we can really reduce 23% of the energy use in one building. I think this really was a good testament of the time of it's time to move some of this forward. And with the new budget that we will receive July 1 going into the next fiscal year, we'll be able to move forward with that. This audit also just kind of shows the vendor really looking at lighting, everything from looking at the LED lamps, some exhaust. There's a kitchen there, so they're looking at exhaust fans for kitchen hoods, some of the dishwasher equipment, controls. So back to building controls, kind of some of that demand control, looking at ventilation, and then scheduling of exhaust fans, and then also water. I know we talked a little bit more about water in one of the other discussions, but this obviously is going to be an area of main focus for us in facilities is how can we reduce the water consumption within the buildings. And we'll continue to look at that in each of these assessments also. And then the building envelope, we talked about kind of the windows. We're also looking at roof coatings. When we do coatings, is using a special material that helps to reduce the heat gain coming from the roof.
Very good.
Here's another one that I just kind of threw in just as more of, it's not really a water savings, but it really fits in, I think, with the overall arching goal of sustainability. And this photo on the left is a drinking water fountain, I think at 525 building, if I'm not mistaken. And the one in the middle is really what our new standard is as we're replacing the drinking fountains. We're moving more towards the fill stations for water. And you can see with this drinking fountain, you have the lower one. It's just, it provides a little bit more accessibility for individuals getting more into kind of our ADA improvements throughout city facilities. And then the one on the right, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Charlie, and then I want to ask you something.
Sure. The one on the right is just one that was installed. Obviously, you can't fit 2 in there with help doing major renovations, but we were able to put a fill drinking fountain in there.
And with the fill drinking, as far as ADA, they'd be able to reach it.
I believe so. There's, I think in this case, it's still within that level of height that it needs to be for meeting ADA.
Okay, Charlie, I love the refill stations. With the funding that you're getting this next fiscal year, are you going to be able to put a lot more of those in?
Yes, in fact, we have ordered new drinking fountains for the 525 building. I think we might have completed a project at West Side. If not, we've got those on order. And then we're looking at some additional fountains, I believe, for the library.
Okay.
And we're really trying to maximize as we're updating our infrastructure and equipment to change it out with these newer style fountains. And I think we'll be able to do a few buildings really over this next fiscal year.
Okay, good. Because I mean, they save so much in plastic also. So I'm just a huge fan of them, and I guess I would just like to see them, as many places as possible. So sounds like you've got a plan. Good job. Thank you.
Thanks. The other area I want to talk about is flooring, and I know it's not the most thrilling topic, but Really, there's two areas that we've really made some changes in on how we clean. And one is really dealing with the old VCT floor tile. And that's the photo on the left. It's usually about a 12 by 12 inch square. It's usually tile that's been there for years. Our custodial crews have to strip and wax it and really do a lot of maintenance on it. So we have now moved away from that type of material, and now we're going back and doing retrofits of just individual break rooms, and surface or in flooring areas that had the older material with more of what the luxury vinyl tiles are, and that's more on the right. And that product, we have found that it really holds up well. And really our custodians, all they have to do is either dry mop it or use a little water. So we've eliminated the chemicals, especially that stripping and waxing. Not only is it's just not needed anymore, but also that labor to do it too. So we've got a plan on doing a number of these floor replacements over this next year. We also have partnered more with the fire departments, and one of their concerns has been really in some areas having carpet that when their employees are coming in, especially out of the field into their houses, of whatever they're tracking in is getting placed into the carpet. So we're removing the carpet and really going to more of a polished concrete. And kind of the same thing, there's less maintenance. It's definitely more sustainable and really reduces, we're hoping it really reduces, which I think it does, any harmful chemicals that they might be dragging in with their feet and shoes. Any questions or keep going?
Keep going. It's awesome.
All right, the next topic I wanted to talk about is adult changing tables. And there was a legislature statute that was introduced and approved, let's say in the last year and a half, 2 years. I kind of lost track with COVID, but that requires when you're doing major renovations and new builds of adding adult changing tables. And really, this is just another tool in the toolbox to be a little bit more inclusive within our population and individuals that might have certain needs or requirements that would require a table where somebody could help to change them and more of an adult age or size. So we have recently, as we're doing renovations, added some adult changing tables. Got one at the museum. We've got one in the city hall outside restrooms right by the council chambers. And then as we're doing new builds or renovations, we're also looking at some other locations to include these and be a little bit more proactive on changing them out. Our biggest challenge is really space, and a lot of the restrooms that we are renovating, it's not real easy to come in and do a major renovation where you can actually add more square feet. So that's been our biggest challenge. But I think over time we'll get there. I think even identifying like one of the restrooms or one of the floors and the restrooms at the library makes sense. We don't probably need to have one on every floor. We probably just need to have one on the lower level and make sure it's well signed. The other area that is not real new, but that we've been working on is the menstrual product distribution. And Councilmember Adams will remember we've had these old dispensers that we used to stock with menstrual products in the years back, and there was a quarter that would be collected and so forth. We have gone through and we have just figured out a way to change those machines that we take it apart and pull out some of the equipment to provide free products. And so we've got one of our techs that is working on that. We really had also hoped to expand the program a lot and add some new dispensers, but the challenge we're running into is kind of similar with adult changing table, is really accessibility. And if you're adding new ones to the wall and you're not in setting them or setting them into the wall, you kind of run into some accessibility issues. So we're working a lot with our ADA coordinator, Nanette, on trying to identify some newer equipment that we could do some retrofits. Also, this is something too that can be added as we do restroom renovations within the buildings. And I think that's it.
Well, I asked a lot of questions as we were going. Councilmember Cubie?
Yes, thanks so much, Charlie. And I confess I've been the kind of force and knocking on or tugging on Andrew Ching's coat about the free hygiene items. And, I think it's really important that they be available in men's restrooms as well, because however anyone identifies, they should have access to those items. And I heard there was, there's sometimes a pushback that, oh, what if people take more than they need? Well, then they need them, or they're giving them to someone. So, for the cost, I'm not worried about someone taking more than they should. And, I don't think we should have any kind of dispensing with any kind of a coin amount, because who carries coins with them these days?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think the more we get it out there, I don't think it has to be a machine that's up to you, but it could be just something accessible where it's just a shelf, where people could grab them and use them. I think that's the cheapest way to go, but I'll leave that up to you. But I'm really glad to see this has been happening, because I've been tugging on Andrew's coat for many months about this. So I'm really pleased, because I know you embraced the idea. So thank you so much. I know it's not always as easy as you might think it would be, but I really appreciate that. And I know when I was talking to Andrew once, he said, well, maybe people could go to a desk and just ask for one at the library, but that can be very embarrassing for someone. I mean, I know times have changed, but when I was a young girl, 12 or 13, that I had 3 older brothers that teased me, and I was just so embarrassed about hygiene products and sanitary napkins. It was terrifying for me to talk to an adult about it practically. So, maybe there are people not as uptight about it now, but I just think it's important to have just free access and have it be really easy and not be any kind of barrier to getting that equipment put in, or somebody having accessibility. So that's just my thought. Changing tables, I think it's important. Like, obviously, any new build, we have to have it at Clark Park, and obviously I can't instruct you or direct you here, but I think it's really important that we walk the talk and put as many adult changing tables as possible. And there's a priority, right, where people tend to be more, every public restroom and every park, that might be tough at first, but certainly with our new builds where there aren't those retrofitting issues that can sometimes come into play, I think it's just so important. And lastly, I just want to thank you, Charlie. You have done so much for sustainability, and you don't see it as just a physical facility thing, but an equity issue, an accessibility issue, an inclusivity issue. And I know you are an unsung hero in Tempe, and I just want to, on my final days here, I just want to thank you so much for all that you do, your proactivity and your passion and the joy in which you do it. So thank you so much. I haven't interacted with you face to face as much as Councilmember Adams and all the facilities experience and expertise she brings to the mix, but I know that she'll carry on with all of this as well. And I just want to thank you for all your service to our residents.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for all your service to our residents too. And it's council members like you and Adams that help to find the funding and help push these type of programs forward. And if it's not somebody taking the initiative, it doesn't happen. So thank you too for what you've done. Appreciate it.
Very good. Of course, Charlie, I mean, this is really awesome. What's fun for me too is to see all the new products that have come out since back in the day when I was in your role, and it's just, the not having to polish to those floors and having new flooring come in, that makes so much more sense. It's just great, and it'll add years to our custodial lives by not having to inhale those. And so that's really, really good news. And I'm just super excited about the direction that you continue to go in. And of course you have our support, and I'll make sure that the new council members know how important your program is also. And I mean, this whole thing has been, just really, really helpful. So thank you so much for the excellent presentation. And Charlie, are you planning also to do a council presentation on this?
I can.
Okay. I think it's up, obviously it's up to you, but it might be a good thing just because you have so much knowledge and so many things that are going on, just like Grace and Braden and,
Yeah,
those folks, I think it might be helpful.
we can definitely work on putting something together.
Okay.
Or maybe a Friday packet item, because I
Uh,
think residents would really want to know this information. So even if it's a Friday packet item, whatever you guys decide, but I think that would be valuable too, and just include the PowerPoint.
Perfect.
Very good. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Charlie.
I
And
just thought of one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Councilmember Adams. And
Sure.
Charlie, have you reached out to Kay Wright, Women for Women? Because I know she works on getting tampons and sanitary napkins out to populations across the city, to homeless populations especially. And I don't know if you reached out to her and talked to her about the strides that you've made.
We have not, as far as like what we've accomplished, but I do remember seeing something with her name on it. And I think I think Dana was going to try to reach out to her and learn a little bit more. If I remember right, she was doing a lot with the schools and trying to get that program really started in the schools. So it would be a great partnership, I think, to reach out to her.
Great. I'll connect you. I'll connect you on.
Okay. That'd be great. Thank you.
good. Yes. And I've just seen like baskets even in restrooms that just have, the different products in it. Like just a little basket with everything in it. And so that might be just an easy solution too, as far as those products. So whatever works, but just another suggestion. So very good. All right. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 4B2, mobile homes and energy insecurity. And Dr. K is here with Human Services Director Naomi Farrell to talk to us about that. Braden and Naomi, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Adams. And I actually have Irma Hollenby Kane. Irma, do you want to just say hi to the group? I don't know if you've had the chance to introduce yourself to the two council members.
Good afternoon, council members.
Great.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And tell me your role.
Well, I am the new Deputy Human Services Director here at the City of Tempe. So I'm over in housing and in Levon Lammy's former position.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that. Well, so welcome to the City of Tempe.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, go ahead.
Thanks. So, Irma, thanks so much for being here tonight. Given that Irma's relatively new to the role, I'll do the presentation, but we wanted to make sure you got to meet Irma and know that Irma's, Irma and her whole team are going to be partners on our energy equity, energy insecurity, and mobile homes outreach work that we'll be working on moving forward. So we can jump in. Next slide. To give you a little bit of overall background into how, into all of our energy efficiency work, and then why we want to focus on some of this work. So overall, obviously, we know we have our community carbon neutrality goal, trying to get to carbon neutrality by 2050 with equitable outcomes, which is a really important part of our conversation today of why to invest in energy equity and mobile home first, is because we want to be driving towards this goal, not just driving towards the goal, but driving towards the goal with equity in mind. Next slide. So as a reminder, we've been tracking our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Next slide. And we've seen those reductions that Council Member Adams pointed out. But we need to reduce our emissions even more. We do know through this that residential energy is a significant part of our energy. It's actually as a total percentage, residential energy went up between 2015 and 2020. So that's 16%. Of our total emissions in residential energy is a real opportunity that we need to continue to deeply invest in. Next slide. So just as a reminder, as part of our climate action work, you know, the great thing about this work in energy equity is it's both helping us with emissions. It's also helping make sure that we're prepared for in terms of resilience to extreme heat. Half of the heat deaths in Maricopa County happen indoors, mostly due to energy insecurity and energy equity issues. So the work that we can do in energy equity in mobile homes is a perfect combination of reducing our carbon emissions and making us more resilient to extreme heat. Next slide. So just as a reminder, this is where we're going business as usual without making deeper investments in energy efficiency. Next slide. Sorry for the delay here. So this shows how we continue to reduce emissions with energy in mind, and you'll see that electricity is still a big portion of that we really need to be driving towards 2050. Next slide, and we can skip through the next slide after that too, I think. So one thing to really notice here in terms of where we have opportunities to do this energy reduction, 20% of our energy reduction opportunity is in that residential energy. And it's a really important way to have an impact in the short term, especially while our grid hasn't totally transitioned over to renewable energy. So in that way, as we heard from our consultants from Kin Lundgren and Associates, the most impactful dollars that we can spend in the next several years on energy efficiency are in that residential space, especially towards residents that need that help the most. Next slide.
Are we having technical problems?
Yeah, the slide conversion is just going a little slow. We apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. I just make sure it wasn't on our end.
It's allowing for a more meditative presentation.
Good reframe. I like that, Brayton.
So one of the things that we learned from Kin Lundgren and Associates is that we need to figure out how to inspire over about $200 million of energy efficiency investments in existing buildings in order to get the reductions we want. We need to do a better job of understanding what we're doing today, but our guess is it's somewhere like a fifth or a tenth of what we really need to be doing is what we're investing today. And there are some policy reasons, as Councilmember Hvac pointed out too. We don't have that. We used to have state leadership in terms of demanding energy efficiency out of utilities. We don't have that same state leadership anymore. And so without that state regulation, we're really trying to figure out what are all of our ways in order to push forward on really getting the utilities and other agencies to help support the much deeper investment in energy efficiency. So if we're able to get that kind of investment, we can help save on energy bills. We can have massive cost savings. We would see over $100 million in cost savings and annual energy cost savings if we were able to get to that level of investment. We would increase property values. We would create more jobs. And quite frankly, we're leaving way too much money on the table by not making much deeper investments in both commercial and residential energy efficiency. Next slide.
Good point, Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, you and I, Braden, know of Amory Lovins and his work, and just academically, the literature is out there saying that you can get to 25% of a 100% renewable energy goal just from energy efficiency, and it's cost avoidance, right? It's the cheapest way to go. And we do know, yeah, to reemphasize, the Arizona Corporation Commission let the energy efficiency standard expire. And it actually stopped us from having to do 14 power plants over the past 15 years. And it saved over $9 billion with a B billion dollars for taxpayers and for ratepayers. So this is really important. But I know Charlie's still on the line. I'm not sure whether this is a question from him or for you, but is there any opportunity to get more investment in our CIP in the next few years? And then looking toward a bond reauthorization, which will come up in a couple of years, is there an opportunity to get more CIP promised for energy efficiency in the city of Tempe?
Great question. So there's two different levers we have. So the levers we're talking about are what are our community levers in terms of how we affect energy efficiency in commercial and residential properties. And then there's the municipal levers of what we're doing in our own city building. So Charlie, if you're still on, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about the opportunity for deeper investment in energy efficiency for city buildings.
Sure. So I really think with the 4 energy service providers that we now have on contract, that it's really identifying which buildings to keep doing the assessments, collecting the data, coming back with here's all the opportunities, and then being ready as we're doing the CIPs to say, we already have all this data and these projects identified. Here's what we need for the funding. And I think we're really setting ourselves up for being in a great position where in the past, maybe we didn't have these companies to help us, and where we can, like that West Side multi-gen, I think that's a perfect example. Is we know it's a $200,000 project, but it'll save about 25% energy usage in that building. So it really, we need to spend more time doing that. And I think doing that prior to putting solar on will just help as what you're describing.
Well, thank you. And I know Councilmember Adams, you're going to continue to champion and quarterback this effort on the council and find the political will, because it makes so much sense. It saves us money. There's a direct correlation in cost benefit.
Exactly. And it might be really good that we to get the new council members up to date on things. I'm just thinking, so they know what we've been doing, because it's a lot of information, and I have, Councilmember Hvac and I have extensive knowledge of this, and so I could see it being really overwhelming to them. So maybe we kind of do like a step-by-step process so they understand kind of where we've been and where we're going with it.
Absolutely, Councilmember Adams. So, our office will be working on briefing and developing capacity with the 2 new council members. We're very lucky that we have one of the 2 council members that's used to energy efficiency conversations as a school board member, and then the other council member, has spent some time on council and is aware of some of these issues as well. But there's still a lot of capacity to build. So, we're certainly we're just in conversations with the city manager and deputy city manager today about making sure the 2 new council members are fully brought up to speed on all these issues, especially concerning, CIP investments and what these new Office of Sustainability and Resilience employees are going to be doing, because the new staff members we're bringing on board are going to be really critical to this work as well. So,
right. Yeah, because in the past, particularly facilities, well, both sustainability and facilities, we didn't get enough love, and so I just want to make sure that, between you and Charlie, that we're going to have a council that's going to give you guys plenty of love to keep these things fully funded.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll work on those conversations, and we'd love you to help us in those conversations with, educating those council members as to, it's such a bang for your buck investment. We can get so many benefits out of both investing in municipal energy efficiency as well as supporting our business community and our residents in energy efficiency out in the community.
Yes, very good. Very good. I love it. Thank you.
So one of the things that we had talked about a lot in Equity in Action and the work that we've been doing is this idea of targeted universalism. And what that means is, how do you find the residents that are getting hit first and worst and hardest by climate change and by energy insecurity? And as we know, one of the target populations of this work needs to be in our mobile home parks. So I'm really appreciative of community development and human services working together on identifying these 17 mobile home park sites throughout the city. There's a tremendous opportunity to do door-to-door outreach with these communities, to provide additional funding for energy efficiency, to go out for grants to target mobile home parks. There's been some great regional leadership from ASU and the Knowledge Exchange for Resilience on mobile home parks, and some really solid work from Maricopa County Public Health, led by Viosa Berisha, and several community-based organizations. But we haven't doubled down on mobile home parks as an energy equity and energy efficiency, opportunity. And so Human Services in our office will be, as we develop this new energy equity position, one of the first charges of that new position that we're so grateful that Mayor and Council funded, one of their first programs will be doing that mobile home outreach and trying to figure out how to set up new programs specifically targeted for mobile homes. Any questions or comments about this?
Yeah, I have a question. Where it says like 5 through 15. What are the cross streets on that? The major cross streets? You just can't see them on the map.
Oh, so many of the black dots you see are right along the Apache corridor. So
Okay.
there's several, and then 1 through 10, as you see on the left, those are the active trailer parks. So a lot of the former trailer parks are in the Apache area, and they're no longer open, whereas the ones that are still open are 1, 2, 3, 4, 16, 17, and I believe 8 and 10 are still functioning, but we still have on the map, just for reference, some of the recently closed trailer parks.
Okay. I'm sorry, I probably didn't read that right. And also, then you said like the 1, 2, 3, 4. What are those cross streets in that area?
We can follow up and identify specifically where the cross streets are, but you can see there's 2 right there on the 10, just south of the Broadway curve on the 10, and several just immediately south on the 60 right there. And then we have several in the La Victoria area that is just east of the 101.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that, Brayden.
No worries.
Chair Adams?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is such important work, Brayden, and I know you're familiar with the work that CARE has done, the Knowledge Exchange for Resilience, and the work with New America. And we know that heat deaths are disproportionately reflected or experienced in mobile home parks. And we know that mobile home parks are the most affordable of housing in the Valley. And these affordable housing opportunities aren't even necessarily as available. There's a lot of them closing down or being developed. And I did want to bring your attention, you probably know already, and Joel Carnejo from Semillas told me, and he also mentioned it in a council meeting, but there is a mobile home park that's for sale and potentially going to be developed, and it's east of the police station on Apache on the south side. I'm not sure which one it is, and that's something Irma and others in Human Services need to be aware of, because there's going to be displacement and a lot of human service needs that will come out of that closure. And we had a closure a few years ago that was just tremendously stressful to the community, and the developer and the owner of the mobile home park weren't very helpful. We really had to get behind it and do a lot of the work ourselves, which isn't our job, but Tempe comes out of its lane sometimes to do the right thing, right? So I'm not sure which trailer park it is, but it is.
I think it may be 6, but we will go
6.
ahead and follow up on
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Joel Carnejo knows all about it.
Okay, we'll be in touch with him.
Thank you.
So next slide. So as many of you know, the Human Services and the Housing Department already does a lot to support energy utility assistance. And that work will continue under Irma's leadership, with Irma and her team. So, and then when our energy equity person comes on board, we'll continue to figure out how to get increased. Right now we have the money from our CDBG block grants. We'll look for additional money through grants and other sources to add to this. But a lot of this energy efficiency investment is just quality of life investment for people's homes. So roofing, plumbing, electrical, flooring, insulation, windows, air conditioning. These are all things that can help reduce the carbon intensity of the home, as well as really support health and safety and public health and life and safety issues for our residents. So there's no question that the emergency repair program is an excellent program, and there's an opportunity to find increased funds for the program. Next slide. We're also going to continue, Irma and her team and Human Services will continue on emergency repair outreach, making sure people know what resources are available to them, and continuing to use all of the routine outreach that we do, and then look for additional outreach opportunities to make sure that people know about the emergency repair funds that do exist. Next slide.
I have a question.
Yep.
So we're working with our Nikki's team on all this, right? You're not having to try to do this all by yourself.
Yes, and and we have an incredible partnership both with Tiana Yee and Susie Steckner. Now that Susie's position is a full-time position that's able to support Human Services, we now have more support than we have in the past for Human Services communications and PIO support. So Nikki and Tiana and Susie are all coordinating on these efforts with us, and have just are doing a tremendous job, and I'm very confident they'll continue to do so.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question, though. So just to remind you in terms of what we'll be doing, we're going to be standing up over the course of this next fiscal year, the new energy equity specialist. You all, mayor and council, also assigned $50,000 in one-time funding to help us get some energy equity pilot projects get going, including the mobile home pilot project. There's also an opportunity, as Council Member Hvac discussed, of working more on the regional energy insecurity working group. So there's currently a working group made up of community-based organizations, nonprofits, Maricopa County Public Health, and there's a real opportunity for Tempe to play an even more leadership role at that table. And then, as we said before, there's a huge opportunity for the new energy equity position to do a lot more coordination with the Arizona Corporation Commission, with the SRP board, and with APS and SRP staff that work on energy and security issues. So we're incredibly grateful for the funding opportunity to have this energy equity position. That position will be in our office, but work very, very closely with Irma and her team, and really sort of be deeply embedded. We're planning on the energy equity position spending some time at some of their staff time at the Envision Tempe Center, so they're very available to residents to help solve energy equity issues right there on the ground. So we're grateful that we are about to have more capacity, both in terms of some pilot project money and in terms of the position to really push on how we target residents that need our support and are experiencing a heavy energy cost burden and experiencing energy insecurity. Next slide. And with that, just to remind you, as we continue to do this work, we're going to be using those utility partnerships. We're going to be using those regional partnerships, partnering with MAG and with Maricopa County and with other cities. There's an opportunity for us to continue to partner with community-based organizations like Las Semillas, like Unlimited Potential, like Rail CDC. A lot of this energy insecurity work could be in partnership with community-based organizations and nonprofits that really center equity and really have a targeted universalism approach. So we're really excited about continuing to pursue that. And then there's going to be some really important federal and philanthropic funding opportunities in this energy insecurity space. And so now, because we'll have funding for the grants and policy coordinator position and the energy equity specialist position, both of those positions in our office are going to be able to help us go for more funding in this energy insecurity and energy equity space. So with that, I'm just so grateful to Mayor and Council for really standing up this new energy equity program. Very grateful for the continued partnership and work of Human Services and the Housing Division. And I just see so much opportunity in this space. And I'm very grateful to both of your leadership in terms of ensuring that we have staffing and increased resources to really start to tackle community energy emissions reduction while making sure that we're serving our residents that have the biggest energy cost burden and need these types of programs and support the most.
Very good. And Dr. K, since I know Lauren met with you regularly, and I'm trying to meet with more of the directors regularly also, just so I keep up a little bit better. So I'll probably have Nikki reach out to you and schedule some meetings.
That would be great. That would be great. We'd be happy to, and especially with some of these programs upcoming, it'd be great to brief you and make sure you understand some of the critical moves that need to happen moving forward. And we really appreciate your continued leadership.
Sure, you bet. You bet. Councilmember Hvac, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to encourage you. I know all the work that has been jump-started with the city and helping to lead regional efforts. There's a lot going on in this space. And so just encourage you to continue with those regional programs. And there's so much work that has been done, and just urge you to work regionally because this is such a hot topic. And I thank you, Braden. And you might have noticed I changed clothes because I have to get to another meeting very soon. But I also just want to point out that if it weren't for Semillas, I'm not sure if council would have supported that energy equity position. And Joel Carnejo, he sort of came up through our equity in action program. So it's showing how much impact equity in action is having. It's helping advocates to really have a voice in our city budget. So I want to just salute equity in action, which you've led, Braden and Shauna, and here we are. We got more funding than we thought we'd get. So thank you.
You bet. Very good. That's the last of our scheduled presentations today. So we'll move on to 4C announcements. Councilmember Hvac, do you have any announcements today?
Just my swan song. Yeah, it's my last meeting. Feeling a little verklempt here. But Councilmember Adams, I wish I could I'm giving you a virtual hug.
I'm back.
Working with you. I think we've been the best committee. We've gotten so much done. And
Me too.
this amazing staff that we've worked with, and we saw an increase in sustainability and resilience funding, 56%, 4 new positions. I don't think there's any city in Arizona that saw such an explosion of staff in the sustainability department as we did. So we know we have this amazing commission. We have Brianna, who was a brilliant hire, Braden. So thank you so much. And we have Dr. Braden Kay. So I'd say I want to drop the mic and walk away, but you're going to be leading this as well as Councilmember Chin, future Councilmember Chin and Hodge. There's such potential. I'm really excited for what the future will bring. I know that when I stepped in 2015, I had Ani Shakurjian as a mentor, and I wanted to really take what she did and give it some extra oomph. And I know that the work that you're going to do in the next 4 years are going to far surpass what we've already done. This has such a multiplier effect, and I'm going to start to get emotional if I talk anymore. But I love all of you and all the hard work that you're doing, all the staff that's there, staying late. Thank you so much from my heart to yours. Thank you for all the work that you've done for our city and continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hvac. But you have to stay with me for a couple more minutes, okay? As many of you know, the new city council members will be sworn in this Friday, July 1st. New council will be revisiting the committee structure and assignments for the upcoming year. So there's currently no future meetings of this committee scheduled at this time. Stay tuned for any updates. I will say though, I've already met with Councilmember-elect Hodge about this, and I want to continue to have sustainability be a high priority. And she said she'd be glad to be on the committee, if this committee. And so anyway, we'll see. I want to thank Councilmember QB for, first of all, your knowledge is incredible. You've taught me so much about sustainability and all your efforts, and I want you to continue sharing all your wealth of information about sustainability issues so I can keep carrying the torch. Your passion is unmatched by anyone, and we would not be here with sustainability without you. I remember when you were sworn in and you started, I was a facilities manager, and you were like, pushing sustainability, and I was like, yeah, all right, and it was really nice to have you. And so you've made such great moves, and most of all, I want to thank you for being such a good friend. You've been a mentor to me, a coach, a friend, a confidant, somebody I can complain to, and vent to. And I just, you're forever in my heart. So thank you for all your hard work. And the city of Tempe is better and the residents better because of your hard work.
Oh, thank you. Carry on.
I will. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. And also thanks to staff. I know we kept you a little late tonight. We apologize, but this was an incredible meeting tonight. So important. We covered so many issues, and we're going to keep it going. So thanks. And with that, I have a motion for adjournment. Councilmember QB?
Second.
All right. So thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody. Okay. You too. Bye-bye.